OGC-002, Construction Readiness Assessment. How can you assess your project's readiness for construction at any point in its development? Discover the support tool that can help your organization. Here to present their findings, please welcome Jim Ramel, Wood Group; Scott Duvall, Huntsman Corporation; Dr. Awad Hanna, University of Wisconsin-Madison; Mark Shepard, Kiewit OGC Engineering; and your moderator, John Davis, Georgia Pacific LLC.
Welcome again to the 2018 Annual Conference. I'm Mark Shepard with Kiewit, and our presentation features the Construction Readiness Assessment Tool. This tool is sponsored by the Downstream and Chemicals Committee. However, we believe the tool can benefit all sectors. Before John Davis with Georgia Pacific introduces the team, let Scott Duvall with Huntsman and I walk you through a scenario that many of you may have experienced in the past.
All right, before we get started, we're going to put on our hats here and change our identities. And imagine that I'm Simon, project manager for OPCO, and this is Bubba. He's a project manager for, or construction manager for Bilco. So let's just kind of take us back to March 2017. Hold on one minute. All right. And recall, just after the Patriots, they just won the Super Bowl, came from behind over the Falcons. Anyway, back to my project. So OPCO's in the middle of this really critical project, super high priority, and as I'm heading out to visit the site, I have the scene playing out in my mind. So, like I said, I'm thinking lots of equipment, cranes towering above the landscape, workers everywhere, simply put, action. You know, Simon likes to see action. Man, was I wrong. Take a look at this. So, let me see what Bubba has to say about it. I'm sure he has a rational explanation.
Well, Simon, you're right. It's empty.
Empty? This place like Deadsville. Where's my cranes, my people? Where's the action? The place is deserted. It's like, remember how we talked about a critical path? If I recall correctly, starting today was one of those. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, yeah, that's it, right? Milestone. Today was a critical milestone. And it looks like we don't have any miles or stones. And Bubba, I did some checking. I was told the warehouse is empty. Maybe you could start the job if you manage to buy some materials. Any excuses for that?
Don't go pointing fingers at me, Simon. This is your fault. I can't deliver materials to the warehouse because the access is still blocked. Remember, you were supposed to take care of that. Or did you forget that too?
Hey, that's besides the point. Even if I had the materials, you don't have the people. You said you put your A team on this, and it looks like we got F Troop instead.
Well, Simon, the deal is we're just not ready.
Yeah, no kidding.
I met with my field super yesterday, and to be honest, we have some problems. We have drawings marked IFC. That means issued for construction, by the way. But they have hole points marked all over them. If I send the crews out now, I'll just end up paying them to sit around doing nothing, then sending them on home. Also, I can't start digging with hole points on the foundations, can't form up, can't place rebar, heck, can't even fab rebar, much less place it. All of this in addition to the fact that most of the designs that we have include major clashes. You know what happens when you start too early, Simon? Well, you end up paying workers and renting equipment for nothing, or you get everything out of sequence. Then you have rework, low morale, and productivity suffers.
Look, Bubba, you need to get started. And you should have raised all this earlier. Now look at the mess you got us into. My boss is all in my business about the schedule. You need to hop on his pony and ride.
I don't think this is Bilco's fault, Simon. In fact, I think it's all yours. Owners are always pushing the contractors to start the job, even when it's not ready.
All right, now we're going to return back to our normal selves. So when our plans don't work the way we expect, conflict sets in. So as owners and contractors, one thing we can agree on is a lack of construction readiness can start a whole chain of events. Just like at the airport, if your flight is delayed, you miss the connection, all the later flights are booked, and it's a real pain to get back on schedule. First, the schedule slips. Next, you have to rework the schedule, but this time the pieces don't all fit together so well. So you begin working out of sequence. Productivity suffers. Costs build up. And in our haste to recover, we make mistakes, more rework. So a bad start gets a project off balance. It's like being bumped while you're standing next to the edge of a ditch. It's like you're completely distracted while you're trying to regain your balance. So distraction. How many times have we flagged that as a cause behind a safety incident? So it's against all this background that the DCC team has developed the construction readiness tool. Now, let's turn your attention to John, and he's going to introduce the team.
Thank you, Scott. So this is why the downstream and chemical industry sector recognized there was a gap in the productivity research that's been done associated with construction readiness, including RT-334 out-of-sequence construction that was rolled out at last year's conference, and several of the team members continued on to this team. This is why they launched this DCC 02 research team, Construction Readiness Assessment for Productivity Improvement, in 2017. This research was one of the first flash track research teams, completing our research in 1 year from inception. The dedicated team met 8 times over the last year to complete this. The team included subject matter experts from the contractors, as well as owners, as well as academics, that had over 600 years of cumulative experience in the industry to help answer the key research question, but more importantly, to develop a tool for industry to really evaluate and mitigate construction readiness. So the first thing we had to do as a team was actually define what does construction readiness mean. So research team has defined construction readiness as a series of activities and procedures that should be completed or substantially completed prior to construction in order to productively start and sustain construction operations. As I said, we had research objectives and essential research questions, but more importantly was for the team to develop an easy-to-use tool that could quantitatively assess project construction readiness on a project-by-project basis, pinpoint key missing factors, as well as organize actions and recommendations of best practices to the teams to create construction-ready projects. I will now turn it over to Dr. Hanna to discuss the research methodology.
Thanks, John. Looking from the global perspective to our research methodology, we have 4 major steps. First, we identified several factors, to be exact, 228 factors that impact construction readiness. We classified this into 15 categories, and you will know a little bit later, maybe 16 categories. Categories related to project teams, and I will explain that a little bit later. Then we moved into data collection, and that was substantial effort during our research. We collected enough data, and then we correlated the data that we collected into some performance metrics, to be exact, 14 performance metrics. And then we developed a score from 0 to 100 to measure how ready you are in your project. This is our research team. All the company participated, and I have to give them a lot of credit for all this substantial effort. In addition to the University of Wisconsin team, we have 3 professors and 2 outstanding graduate students. So as I said, we have 228 factors classified into 15 categories. factors related to project team, factors related to engineering, factors related to planning, factors related to health, safety, and security and environment, and so on, with a total of 228. So for example, if I look at the engineering factors, we have engineering category, we have 17 factors underneath. For example, IFC, issue for construction, clash and interference, checks, standard and specification, and timely response to RFI. If we look at another category here, change management. We looked at factors related to evaluation, quantification of changes, communication of change orders, and updating and tracking changes. Then we put all these factors in a web-based survey using Quadrix, and we send it to all CRI members with very heavy involvement from our team. The survey consists of 4 major sections. Section number 1 related to general information about the project that we try to collect data from, related to issues like where is the project located, what type of project, what size of projects, and so on. We have 17 questions about general information, about the company also. And then we have 228 questions related to readiness factors. These questions are binary, either 0 if it's not addressed, or 1 if it's addressed, or not applicable. And then we have questions related to performance metrics, and that's substantial effort here. We need all kind of information related to the outcome of each project. And we have 22 questions about that. And then at the end, we have feedback questions. How long did it take? Whether the question was clear or not, and so on. Total of 264 questions. It takes about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, and that's very, very minimum investment related to substantial outcome, as you will see later. In terms of the data collection, we were so lucky to be able to get 80 completed projects from all over. 41 projects that were construction ready, 39 projects were construction not ready, and we intentionally tried to do that. 71 projects came from North America, US and Canada, 5 from South America, 3 from the Middle East, 1 from Asia. Total dollar value for all this project is almost $20 billion. To be exact, $19.7 billion. That's a substantial number. So in terms of relating readiness to performance metrics, we have 14 different performance metrics. We used the standard CII definition in terms of cost growth, budget factor in terms of schedule growth, schedule factors in terms of productivity, performance factor, which is earned over actual, and also hours factors in terms of quality. We were able to measure rework as a percentage, and also the value of the bunch list items in terms of change management, percentage change, in terms of safety, OSHA recordables, or OSHA incident rate, and lost time injuries or lost time cases. In terms of communication, we have RFI processing time, a number of RFI per $1 million, and in terms of profitability, we were able to get overhead and profit for all these projects. Here is the major finding of our research. We found out that projects that were construction ready outperform projects that were not ready for construction in all performance metrics. Projects that were ready for construction achieved 20% cost saving, 29% better productivity, 22% schedule reduction, 21% less changes, and 7% less rework. That is substantial conclusion of our research, and that is really will encourage all of us later to use the tool that I will show you, or will show you a little bit later. Also, during the course of this research, we have 228 factors. We were able, through complicated mathematical models, to rank all these factors in terms of their importance of being construction ready or not ready. So for example, item number 1, issue for construction drawings. That's under the category of engineering. Item number 2, multidisciplinary skill team. That's under project team. Item number 3, hold points and handoff. That's under planning. And we have the entire ranking with the weight of each factor under each category. Then we were able to construct a dial that will assist you to score your project, and from 0 to 100. So the readiness score is an overall metric ranging from 0 to 100 to assess the project construction readiness. So if you are from 0 to 75, you are not ready for construction, 0 to 75%. From 75% to 85%, that's a borderline. There's some issues need to be addressed. And from 85% to 100, you are ready for construction and ready to mobilize. I will turn it to Jim, and he will take you through the tool that we developed. Jim?
All right. Thanks a lot. So I'm Jim Ramel with Wood. Tell you, I'm going to be kind of risky here. I'm going to go off script. Y'all ready for this? All right. So kind of looking, it's about 3:30, closing in on 3:30. The room is still pretty full. So I tell you what, let's give yourselves a big hand for hanging in here through all these presentations. I think it's fantastic. We've heard a whole lot of excellent material today, and evidenced by you guys sticking in for this. Now I want to capture your imagination. That's the theme of this year's conference, right? Imagine. So imagine, if you would, September 2019. Fall is in the air. College football has started. Life is pretty good. Your CEO stops by your office to chat. She shares with you about a large, complex program that's not progressing the way that everybody wants it. This program is part of a global framework with a major client. So this impacts not just your business unit, but the entire corporation. It's not progressing well, the client's starting to get nervous, and your company really needs to pull this thing out. You sit down with the CEO as they're sitting there in your office, and you start outlining things. You know that it's got to start well. You've got to set those expectations and deliver on the project. Your boss agrees, and she asks you to lead the program. You know that this will be a huge career enhancement, but you've got to figure out how to do it. You've got to deliver on this program. You think back, and you kind of reflect back. July 2018, you attend the CII annual conference, and there's this fantastic tool you heard about, the Construction Readiness Assessment. And you think, hey, this is a good thing. Fortunately, when you heard about that tool, you went back to your office and you started piloting it on a couple of programs, a couple of projects, and you started getting some baseline data. With that baseline data, you were able to start establishing company-level options. From that, you looked at some of those projects and you started setting additional data, additional criteria. We went through multiple reviews on those selected projects that you started to pilot with. So now, hey, let's take a look at the tool. It's actually a simple Excel file that once you open it up, it really transforms into a very sophisticated tool. So we click that start button, and here we go. So again, we piloted this on several projects, and we established those company-level options. This gave us 6 options to customize the tool use. And we set our own target figures through this thing, and we also linked in a lot of the CII best practices. After customizing the tool, we used it at the project level. So let's take a look there. The tool described for us the tool outputs and the procedures that should be followed to get the best out of the CRA tool. Again, these are the 15 categories Dr. Hanna described to us. Yes, I know there's 16 boxes on there. That box in the bottom right-hand corner is where you can set up some specific company attributes. I'm not going to walk you through each one of those things because y'all would run me off stage if I started to bore you that much. But let's take a look at the project team button. So we go through the project team factors. As was mentioned earlier, simple yes, no answers on this. I don't know if you can quite see it on the screen, but if you hover your cursor over those question marks, some of the company-related definitions will pop up. Shazam. We've gone through them all, and all those gray boxes turned to black as we completed them. So we had about 228 assessment questions, and we're ready to see the tool outputs. We've got 4 ways to display the results. Let's start out with a gauge. Uh-oh. This gauge presents the overall construction readiness score. Everyone was right to be concerned. We're not ready. We're not even in the yellow. We're solidly in the red, not ready to start construction. Shoot, we got a 64. So what are we going to do? Let's dive in and let's see where we need to start fixing things. So we go to the spider chart, and the spider chart starts breaking it down into the categories. So the black line here references our target. These are the targets. So we can go to each category. This is how we scored. So that red line indicates our scores. As you can see, we missed most of our targets. Where we lagged most was in engineering and execution-related factors. So again, the tool lists out the factors that we missed, and it's sorted from the most to the least important. So let's click on the first factor, the schedule for design deliverables aligned with the sequence of construction. You know from your AWP days, this is the path of construction. This actually starts to build an action item list for us. So we can put the actions to take, list out the responsible parties, the dates required, and any additional notes that we want to put in here. Again, going back to all the missing key factors. So we've addressed some of those missing factors. So we created that action plan. I'm sure everybody in the room, every project is constrained by resources and time. So knowing our team had little time and resources to recover, and we had to build back up that confidence level, I encourage the team to use a CRA tool, links to the best practices and our company practices, so they could get improved much quicker. So let's print out that report, and we can start implementing these required actions. So you can see we finished our first review, and then we went in and we reevaluated the program about a month or 2 later. I want to say new review, so we're going in here. Hey, look at this. We've moved. I was impressed at how quickly the team improved. We've gone from a 64 to a 94. We're solidly in the green. And then the team started going into some of these additional charts. So this is a much better looking spider chart. So we've gone from red to green. We're exceeding all of our goals. Again, that target line was the black. The red was our first review. The green is our second review. It is a great turnaround and improved performance. Clients impressed with our quick actions, and we're regaining their confidence. We've become the poster child for efficient capital project delivery, both within our company and for the client. You know what? After we finished creating this tool with all the input that we discussed, we went out and we tested this on 10 different projects. And this was from various companies. So again, DCC paid for this research, but this is applicable to everybody, we feel, within CII. Everyone who tried this tool agreed it was very accurate in classifying these projects as either ready, not ready, or borderline. That's that yellow. The users agreed the tool was valuable in terms of tracking the readiness throughout the project phases. It was also praised for ease of use. And more importantly, everybody out of those 10 projects, everybody wants to use it again. They want to use it on their next project. John?
Thank you, Jim, for describing the tool. So what are we waiting for? Let's start using the tool as soon as we can to assess the readiness of our projects. Get the whole team aligned on where we are associated with readiness, and then get the team to collaboratively work to close those gaps so that we can start projects ready and sustain that readiness throughout the project. As Dr. Hanna showed, and I'll show in a couple slides, so we can take advantage of those productivity improvements, cost improvements, schedule improvements, so we have better projects that are successful. So in research of our summary, using our industry knowledge both on the committee as well as surveys that we had, both the quantitative surveys and project-based surveys, we established what are those key factors to define construction readiness. After evaluating the data gathered and really putting it together and evaluating those projects, specifically the project quantitative data, establishing a readiness score that could evaluate projects as construction not ready or construction ready. And then rolling both of those key factors, the readiness scores, as well as best practices related to those key factors into a CRA tool, into our construction readiness assessment tool. We had gotten to that point, and one thing that came up, and Jim actually mentioned it, is to have that flexibility for companies that have maybe different expectations in these different categories or categories of their own that they want to evaluate. To allow that flexibility to have those company-based options was important to the team, and as we went out to the users, they saw that as an important add that helped companies that were in different places. You can use the CII research solely by itself, but if you have more information and you've gathered information over time, you can incorporate that right into the tool. One of the keys to success, as we expected in the tool, is team collaboration. This isn't a tool for a construction manager or even a contractor to do on their own. How do we involve the owner, the contractor, the engineer, the procurement folks? As you saw, there was varying key factors that spread throughout the project team. And it's important that the team collaborates and you come to an aligned answer on where you are on those key factors so you can really see if you're construction ready or not construction ready. Most importantly, through that collaborative use and getting to construction ready projects, or at least, one of the things we got to, some projects are going to move forward regardless. But at least you've identified the risks and team members know what the risks are when you move forward. But all of this, if we get to construction ready projects, are going to improve the project performance. As Dr. Hanna talked about in his section, we did the statistical analysis of construction ready projects versus construction not ready projects. And as you can see, these are really big numbers. And when you think about just the billions of dollars we evaluated, or you think about the 1.4 trillion of the construction industry, what's the value of this? To me, this is the we got to do something slide. 22% schedule reduction, 29% productivity improvement, 20% cost savings, 7% less rework, and 21% less change. Who wouldn't want to use this research and tool? I would hope nobody would leave here and say, that's not worth it, looking at these numbers. Based on our validation, as Jim talked about, those teams that use the tool, 100% of those teams that use the tool said, we'll use it again, and we'll use it on every one of our projects. To me, that user experience and them seeing the value is the most important part. We could come up with what we thought was great, but that feedback that we would use this again is most important. So now, how do I know people are probably asking themselves how to get my hand on the tool. So there's been a recent add to the app, which is the conference exhibits. And it'll also be on the CII website. So there'll be a zip file for this research team, which will have the tool. We'll have the tool instructions, and we'll also have the research documentation that was submitted earlier this month by the team. Once you get through that and dig in, if you ever have any questions, I'm sure anybody that was on that committee can help you with that. We'll also be, after this presentation, at the Meet the VIP booth across from the main CII booth. And because we don't want to interrupt reception and people's social hour, we'll also come back in the morning and plan on being there to actually show the tool. We'll probably have Yusuf and Michael helping us out to actually show how we use the tool. So now we're going to open the floor up to questions, and let me get my app out. Thank you. So our first question is, when should you use the tool? You want to take that, Jim?
Absolutely. So kind of the quick answer to that, the easy answer, is early and often. And why do I say that? So again, you have to be a little bit careful. So you start doing it early in the initial phases of your project, and you might be in the yellow and the red, because some of the answers, you're not ready to move into construction yet. But again, remember, by just asking those questions, you're going to start leading the team down to the right path and those observations. So you can do it through the different phases, and you'll be closing in until it's time to mobilize, and you should be at the green at that point.
Okay, good. So the next question, who's supposed to use the tool? I think we briefly mentioned this from the project team. And how would you actually execute this? I don't know. Anybody want to take that? So I mentioned it, so I'll take it. So I mentioned it. It's really a team collaborative tool. It's not meant for a project manager to go in the corner and try to fill out the 228 questions. It's for the whole team. And it's when you get the right team, I mean, Jim talked about early and often, but it's also as you get those right team members on the team to actually fill out the survey and get the different points of view. That's probably a time to think about redoing it. If you're, if you've just decided to get earlier contractor involvement, you're still in an early phase and the contractors just come on board, well, run through another one. Make sure there's alignment on those things that do need to be done. So the next one is, if our team has an impending mobilization, how can we use the tool?
I'll take that one. All right, let's go imagine that we're back in Jim's scenario. He's working for the CEO, and he's got me as the project manager, and we just started our contract, but now we've resolved our differences, and so we're team co now. And so we're going to use the tool. Now, as a project manager for the contractor, before the bid, during engineering, we'll probably use a tool to see how we're progressing to make sure that we're ready to bid out the contract and so forth. But once we have the contractor on board, then we might want to use the tool and review it with the contractor and his team to make sure that our bid package is complete and that they agree that we are in fact ready to start. So that might be another way to use it.
And we're really glad to have you back on our preferred client list.
Well, cool. So how does this differ from the PDRI? I'll take that one too. So to me, the biggest difference is the PDRI is still a little bit more of a general and engineering centric. I see this as complementary to that, to really saying, are we construction ready? There's questions in the PDRI that relate to, do you have a construction plan and do you have certain of these deliverables? But really, are they all met? And kind of to Jim's, do you understand the pathway to construction? And do we really have the deliverables aligned in the time sequence so that we can actually mobilize correctly? I see it as a complementary tool, not a replacement. And it may even be different participants in it. This to me gets more down into the details of construction superintendents and those details actually doing the work versus maybe a higher level meeting of managers in the PDRI. So there's a question, was the process focused for your sector or could it be used elsewhere?
I can take that. We have about 75% of the data came from DCC sector, and about 25% of the data outside DCC. So I would say this is very generic. It can be used in any sector. It can be used virtually in any project.
Good. All right, scrolling through here. So there's a question on here. Can you provide us all the factors so that we provide assessments to our projects? So as I said, the material's available on the conference website. It's the conference exhibits. That'll give you the entire list so people can start looking at those and also seeing if there's additional ones that you would want to add before you actually roll out the tool. That's kind of how we set it up, is the company can go in and set some specific goals or some specific extra factors if they already have some things in their process.
I can add more to this, that the factors are listed in the research report, and also the weight that I was talking about is also in the research report. What's number one, what's number two, what's the different weight for 228 factors.
So how long does it take to use the CRA, and any tips on how to complete, who should be there, what that actual meeting looks like?
According to the respondent who responded to the survey, it's between an hour and a half to 2 hours. And basically, a lot of people should be involved in this. The engineers, the contractors, the owners, procurement people, the safety people. So it is really every category, we have different people. And that will also assist in collaboration of all the project stakeholders. Again, as Jim said, early and often, that's the key.
So another question is, do you recommend an unbiased third party to facilitate the scoring meeting? Anybody want to take that one?
I'll take it. Probably not necessary to have an unbiased third party, so long as one of the main objectives is for the contractor and the owner or the project team to communicate with each other. Now, presuming they can do that without having the need for a facilitator, I don't think it's necessary. And the tool is straightforward enough that I don't think you need someone who's specially trained. It's also simple in the sense of yes or no type questions, so it doesn't require sort of a facilitator that can make sure that you apply the questions consistently from project to project. It's either you have this element, it's complete, or it's not. So the idea behind its development was that simple yes or no format to make it easy to use and quick.
But we didn't have the intention of having a facilitator. It was mostly from a project team, project stakeholders.
And I think,
but it's,
I think Scott mentioned one of the big things is it being yes, no, it's not, to me, it's not scoring subjective. Like a PDRI where you're trying to figure out, is it a 1 to a 4? Yeah. What is that actual score? It's kind of a yes, no. It's pretty simple. It sounds pretty daunting to say there's 228 elements, but when you actually think about yes, no, it becomes pretty easy to answer those questions.
But one more kind of another viewpoint towards that. Y'all know your project teams. And if it's a contentious group of folks, bring in a facilitator so they're not throwing each other in a headlock while they're doing this. But that's the value of having that discussion. And it should be just the team-led discussion, but you know your project teams. If you need somebody, get them in there.
So as we use the tool for a couple years, how can we adapt the tool to capture new factors?
I can try that. We have in the tool some areas for additional categories and additional factors that you can add. You can also link it to your own best practices within your company or CII best practices. So over the years, you should be able to establish some benchmarks, what we are good at, what we are not good at, how we can improve, where we can improve, so within the existing factors and the new factors.
Okay. And it also has the ability to customize it to some extent. So if in our company we find that one of the factors isn't weighted correctly, that we need to put more emphasis on it for some reason, we can change the weightings and still kind of reflect what our project experience is.
Yeah, as well as the links.
Right,
and the links. As creating different links for those best practices. If you have internal best practices or procedures to follow, having those key links there or defaulting to the CI links, I think allows you that flexibility to kind of learn as you go.
So John, I think something to acknowledge through all this. So the tool has been a very collaborative effort, not just our research team, but we've been presenting this throughout the process to the DCC sector meetings, and they've provided a lot of feedback as we went along. So it's been very collaborative, and we've tried to engage a lot of those suggestions as we moved along.
So I guess everybody really wants to get to this social hour. So we only got one more question, and I saved this one for last just so I could close with it. And it's, how do we get access to the tool? Once again, go to the conference exhibits, download the zip file, and you can start using it tomorrow. We really have it out there. Come see us in the booth. As I said, we'll be there this afternoon as well as tomorrow morning, kind of the back half of breakfast, to really answer any questions. So I appreciate everybody's time and hopefully enjoy the social hour and the awards banquet tonight. Thank you.